When you look at your travel photos, do they look like the amazing places that you experienced? Like the images that you had in your mind when you created the photos? Mine really didn't for a long time, way longer than I'd like to admit. And what I discovered, and I'm going to share with you today, was that there were 3 things that were holding my photos back. And of course, I'm going to talk about how to fix those 3 things for you going forward. So welcome back to the PhotoFluent channel. I'm Diane, and the goal here is to help you develop some confidence with your camera so that you can create amazing photos that you can share with the world. And if that sounds like something you're interested in and want to know more about, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notifications. Okay, so I got my first digital camera and I was thrilled because I thought this is so much easier than film. You know, film you have to bring in the negatives and get the little slides back and then figure out which ones to print. This is immediate feedback. It was amazing, but I didn't completely understand how it worked. So I stuck it in auto and I took a whole lot of photos. Not great photos. Some of them turned out okay, but I didn't have a lot of creative flexibility in auto, right? If you remember, I did a video, how to get out of auto. Of course, I'll link to that below because it's another good one. But what auto mode in your camera does is it limits your camera's potential and your potential. So I took some decent photos. Then I started branching out. I'm trying new modes. I'm trying new things with my camera. But my photos sucked. They were blurry, they were too dark, they were too bright. And I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I took a class and another class and I did YouTube videos. I tried everything. I just wasn't getting it. And it was really frustrating. I'm going to share with some of you my bad photos, not because I'm proud of them, but it really helped me when I saw some of my teachers share with me, this is what my photos used to look like. And I thought, oh, good. They weren't born that way. So I went to Peru and auto mode. Here's some of the photos that I took. And again, some of them were okay. But I found that very few were okay versus hundreds of them that I took. Well, then I tried some new things. Went to Japan. Ooh, very bad. My photos were really bad. They were blurry. I think in Peru I had more light to work with, so my camera did okay. And in Japan, it was pretty overcast. So because of the low light and because I didn't know what I was doing, I got a lot of blurry, dark, ugly pictures. And so you can see those now, and I'm not super proud of them. I was very embarrassed. And at a certain point I was like, you know, I'm just not good at this. So I put my camera away thinking it's not my thing. But I kept having these images in my head of what I wanted my photos to turn out like. So I'm here today. I did figure it out, but what were the 3 things that made me love the photos that I took? Well, number 1, first and foremost, I got comfortable and confident using my camera. When I pick up my camera now versus say 10 years ago, I know which settings to pick. And if my photos aren't turning out, I know how to problem solve. I know how to change the settings depending on the environment. And it made a huge difference in my photos. Now, number 2 is I learned how to edit. And again, you don't need to be a Photoshop expert to figure out editing. I've never figured out Photoshop, honestly. It's really hard. I've taken classes. I've tried. It's very complicated. But Lightroom, on the other hand, has a learning curve, but it's not nearly as steep. And it's much more intuitive. So a few quick and simple edits can take that mediocre or not great exposed photo and make it pretty darn good. I think I love editing because it's that one thing in life that you get a do-over. Like if you say something rude to somebody, you can't take it back. It's out there. You can apologize, but it's out there. If you take a photo that's not perfect, there's so much you can do to fix it. Nobody Nobody has to know what it looked like originally. So first I figured out my camera. Second, I figured out editing, and I reined myself in and not let the overwhelm take over, because that's where I first started with editing. I think that's where I start with everything. I immediately jump in and think, oh, this is really hard. I'm overwhelmed. I, step by step, figured out, and now, quick, few edits, whole different photo. And the third major thing that changed how I liked my photos is adjusting my thoughts and not being so darn mean to myself. When I would first look at my photos, like this shot from Lightroom, you look at all the thumbnails of a whole series of photos that you took during a shoot. I would scan through those and hate all of them, every single one, and think, oh, none of those turned out. For client work, I think, oh crap, I was there for hours and none of the photos turned out. I got to know myself well enough that I'd know you're being too hard on yourself. So I would put them away, and then I'd come back the next day, and then I'd find one and think, oh, this is okay, this will work. I'd actually find quite a few that would be okay. But I had to learn to be kinder to myself, to not be so harsh and not expect perfection. Here's a good example. When my husband and I lived in France for a year, I took this photo in Bordeaux, and it was one of his favorites. He loved the kind of juxtaposition of the ancient building with the new tram in front and the guy on the bicycle, and then the old and the new. I did not like it because it wasn't perfect. It was a little soft in the focus department. I found a whole series of mistakes with this photo. He wanted to print it. Print it big. When we moved back to the States, got our house, he's like, let's print this. This is my favorite photo. And I got really uncomfortable because I didn't like it. And I had to explain to him why I didn't like it. And he was kind of like, are you kidding? Because I was so nitpicky about this detail and that detail. He won, and I really had to have a conversation with myself about, is it a bad photo? If this person really likes it, my husband nonetheless, is it just me being too mean to myself? So I had to rein that in and look at my photos with a different perspective. Now, here's an exercise to try for yourself. I found that once I started to ease up on myself and look with a different perspective, not so critical, when I go back to my old photos that I've already kind of did the pass through and rejected some and accepted some, I find there are a lot of those rejected photos that aren't that bad. And that with a few edits, all of a sudden actually become pretty darn good. So I challenge you, go back to your old photos with a new perspective, a kinder perspective. Could I edit this a little bit and get it from blah to kind of amazing or better even? And see if there's some photos in there that actually didn't make the cut, but maybe should have. I'd like to see in the comments, do you criticize yourself maybe too much? Do you think that your photos are possibly better than you think they are? Let me know in the comments. Okay, so here are my 3 suggestions for you to help you get to the place where you love your photos. And you know when you go on that next trip that you are going to come home with hundreds of photos that you love. Number 1, get comfortable with your camera. Get confident when you pick it up. Not, I can't remember how all of this worked. Or you don't use it in between trips, so when you get out your camera, you think, oh, I don't remember how to use this, I'll just put it in auto. You're not making the most of your camera or you. So get comfortable, get confident using your camera. Confident. Number 2, learn some editing. I don't mean Photoshop. I just mean a few sliders in Lightroom. That's it. Just be able to do some quick and basic edits, and you will be amazed at the transformation in your photos. And then number 3, give yourself a freaking break. When you look at your photos, don't be so mean to yourself. Don't compare yourself to a National Geographic photographer. You're not getting paid right now for your photos, right? So the only person that has to like them is you. Maybe you have followers, maybe you have a blog, but ultimately, you're your harshest critic. So if you're a little nicer and you find more photos that you like that maybe show a great moment or experience that you wouldn't have shared with your followers or family before because you didn't think it was, quote, good enough. Now you share it because you think, man, that's a great moment. It's a little soft in the focus department, but it might be a little dark, but I can clean that up with editing. Now you share it and people are like, that is an amazing photo because it makes them feel something. It's not all about perfection. It's about you and your viewers feeling something when they see your photos. Now, if I said those 3 things and you're like, oh sure, but how do I do that? I have the perfect solution for you. I'm starting a brand new membership and I'm really excited about it. It's called the PhotoFluent Circle. And we are on a monthly basis going to learn all of those things. We're going to learn together. You're going to get support in the form of feedback on your photos. You're going to get to ask questions. I'm going to answer them. You're going to have a whole community of like-minded creative travelers that you can connect with, we can have conversations with, share photos with, and it's going to be a great collaborative, inspiring environment. Enrollment will open next week, but make sure you click the link and get on the waiting list because you'll be the first to know that way, and there's a special bonus for everybody on the wait list. I would love to get a like on this video if you're inspired to get your camera out and try some of these things in preparation for your next trip. I'm very excited about the PhotoFluent Circle. I hope you join us there, and I will see you in the next video.